can I just take this moment to thank each and every one of you amazing supporters. This channel has grown into an amazing community of story lovers. I could not have done it without you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed, then please be part of this journey and help us reach new heights. Thank you. I'll admit I was pretty addicted to swiping on Tinder. As a busy grad student, it wasn't always easy meeting people in person. Tinder offered this constant stream of potential matches, new people to chat with whenever I had some downtime. Mostly it was just hollow flirting and lame one-liners. But one night, I matched with Josie and it felt different. Her photo showed a cute girl with fiery red hair and a sassy smile. Her bio said she loved hiking and scary movies. Basically all my faves. Our chat started with the usual small talk, but we seriously just clicked right away. The conversation flowed easily and made each other laugh. After a couple days of non-stop messaging, I already felt closer to Josie than anyone else I'd met online. When I asked her out for a real date, she wasn't hesitant at all. We picked a super cool modern restaurant downtown that Saturday night. As I was getting ready, I honestly felt giddy, like high school crush butterflies in my stomach, kind of excited. This girl was just so dang awesome. When Josie walked in wearing a bold emerald dress, she looked even prettier than her pics. Her smile lit up the room and any first date awkwardness quickly faded. We talked for hours about traveling, our favorite music, childhood memories. It was like time stood still, and before I knew it, they were closing down the restaurant. Josie suggested we grab another drink at the bar next door. The night flew by as we continued chatting, moving closer together in our cozy corner booth. When she rested her head on my shoulder, I couldn't believe this amazing connection we were making. It just felt so meant to be, you know. Near last call, Josie said she better head home, and I offered to walk her back. We strolled slowly, hand in hand, neither of us wanting the night to end. When we reached her cute Victorian apartment, she flashed that adorable smile of hers and pulled me in for a soft kiss, then invited me inside. Yeah, you can guess what happened next. The next morning, I awoke feeling on top of the freaking world. As Josie slept soundly beside me, I reveled in memories of the most incredible date I'd ever been on. My cheeks actually hurt from smiling so hugely. I couldn't wait to see her again, and soon. When I got home, I immediately opened Tinder to send Josie a flirty thanks again for last night message. But suddenly, her match was gone. Just vanished from my list. I checked to Josie's last name scribbled on a paper, but no combinations came up in my area. It's like she had been wiped clean from Tinder entirely. Confused, I searched every social network. No profiles anywhere. I texted the number she'd given me, but it said the line was disconnected. Even Google showed 0 results for her full name in this city. It honestly felt super bizarre and straight up creepy. I drove back to the restaurant we met at and showed the bartender a selfie Josie had taken of us. He said he remembered me dining alone and leaving alone. None of the regulars recognized her name or fiery hair either. By now, I seriously started freaking out. It was like Josie had completely vanished into thin air. Did I just imagine meeting her, sharing that sparks-flying date? But it felt so real, her warm hand in mine, her lips kissing me softly. How could my mind manufacture such vivid intimacy with someone who didn't actually exist? Doubt and dread swirled sickeningly inside me. Was I losing touch with reality or becoming some kind of delusional stalker? As days passed with no logical trace of Josie, I became obsessed with solving this bizarre mystery. I researched everything, alternate identities, witness protection programs, even some far-out theories about supernatural computer glitches. Desperate, I hired a private investigator and described Josie in minute detail, her cute nose, the small scar on her knee, her melodic laugh. But no records match across the entire country. Weeks later, I found myself still compulsively swiping through Tinder, flinching whenever I saw a flash of red hair. Part of me hoped Josie's smiling face would suddenly reappear with some logical explanation. The rest of me worried I was descending into alleged madness. My friends started voicing concern too, saying I needed to see a therapist. But I knew they just didn't understand what Josie and I had shared. I knew she was real, wasn't she? I decided to return alone one last time to the bar where Josie had whispered she was falling for me. I sat staring holes into that empty booth, glimpsing echoes of her flickering form, an apparition my mind still couldn't accept losing. As the last call approached again, the bartender asked if I was all right. I sighed and slowly shook my head no. He said he knew it was crazy, but he kind of remembered me with a redhead girl that night too. I glanced up, a spark of hope piercing my gloom. Really? He thought hard, but then shrugged and said perhaps we had just seemed so in love that he wanted to believe it. I nodded in weary resignation as he squeezed my shoulder kindly before leaving me alone with my ghosts. I dropped my head into my hands, tears trickling down silently. Her musical laugh suddenly echoed from across the bar. Heart-lurching, I jerked my eyes up, but only empty shadows stared back. Darkness shrouded the spot where my lost love once sat, vibrant and alive in my aching memories. Phantom traces swirled around me, her perfume, her warmth, her tender sighs. My breath caught sharply at fleeting glimpses of Josie's beloved form, more ghost than girl now, a haunting reminder of joy once found, and now forever lost. The room felt colder and emptier than I ever imagined possible as I walked slowly out the door alone. Swiping on Tinder always felt a little sketchy, but after a bunch of dud conversations, I finally matched with a girl named Brooke who seemed genuinely cool. After joking around in the app for a few days, I asked her to meet up. We grabbed coffee and damn, that first date couldn't have gone better. Brooke was just as funny and down to earth in person. We spent hours chatting about our favorite movies and conspiracy theories over a couple lats. There was no awkwardness at all, which is rare for me. Everything just clicked with this girl. We started dating regularly after that. It was always simple stuff. Getting boba tea, checking out street fairs downtown, Netflix at her cute apartment. But after a few weeks of seeing Brooke, I'd noticed something that gave me pause. We'd catch glimpses of the same random guy wherever we went. Now don't get me wrong, I'm no egomaniac. At first I thought it was merely an odd coincidence. Like, hey, La's a big city, but people tend to flock to the same hip areas, right? But soon it kept happening, and the dude's face looked oddly familiar too. It clicked when we were at our favorite ramen spot. As we slurped noodles, I saw a guy again lurking outside, pretending to be lost while peering through the window straight at us. And it hit me. His thin face and cold gray eyes were from the profile pic of one of Brooke's Facebook friends. Her ex, maybe. When I asked Brooke about it later, her bubbly energy instantly vanished. She tensed up and shook her head, saying she didn't want to talk about him. Clearly bad news, so I didn't push it. But the next week when we escaped the summer heat at an afternoon movie, sure enough Mrnightmare was there, watching us from 3 rows back. It was definitely time for another convo with Brooke. When I swung by her place that night, she broke down crying about how I was gonna leave her now. In shocked comfort, I learned she had a mentally unbalanced ex named Liam who had become weirdly obsessed after their breakup 6 months ago. He had panic attacks if Brooke ever missed his texts, and once showed up at her office begging her not to go on some work trip. She had to threaten a restraining order before he unwillingly gave her space. But I guessed old Liam hadn't quite got the message yet based on his creepy tracking of her dates. Brooke said she was scared he would flip out when he realized how serious we were getting, and she worried my safety might even be at risk with Liam's unpredictable temper. Damn, our romantic story was getting kinda alarming. But I really liked Brooke, so I wasn't gonna ditch her over some obsessive tool she dumped long ago. I said we'd figure it out together and do whatever necessary to get Liam out of our lives for good. Brooke was so relieved and grateful, she started crying again, but happy tears this time. Things were good for a while. We didn't notice Liam skulking around anymore. But one night, Brooke called me freaking out saying he had followed her home and knew where she lived now. She was honestly terrified after he left a bag of bloody roses on her car, with a note saying soon we'd be together forever. I rushed right over to comfort her. We considered calling the police, but worried it might push Liam over the edge. Brooke decided to stay with me for a while instead, feeling safer if we stuck together. I even started letting her drive my car solo since Liam wouldn't recognize it when she was alone. For several weeks, we managed to evade him. Our romantic getaways now had an added urgency to find normalcy again. But Liam was clearly unstable. A couple chilling text messages revealed he still tracked Brooke's every move, now seeing me as the obstacle keeping them apart. As much as we tried to hide our locations from him, he always sniffed us out. Brooke was a nervous wreck, jumping at every phone notification and constantly checking over her shoulder. Things spiraled when Brooke realized she was being photographed outside her office. We spotted Liam hiding behind a tree with a zoom lens primed on her building. I had enough and marched toward him in a blind fury, ready to defend my girl. But he dashed at his beat-up Sedan and sped off, his hollow eyes meeting mine as he glared back in dark promise. Brooke agreed then to request a restraining order. We celebrated feeling safe for a moment, relieved to finally reclaim our lives. Together we could withstand one guy's ominous threats, I assured her. But Liam wasn't ready to back off his beloved obsession just yet. Danger still lurked in the shadows, and we remained locked in his sights. Later that week when I left work one night, the garage floor was deserted. Reaching my car, I fumbled for keys in the eerie silence. Suddenly, I heard a screech of tires rapidly approaching behind me. Heart seizing in panic, I turned just as a pair of headlights bared down on me fast, Liam's gaunt face visible behind the wheel on a collision course with my frozen form. I woke up days later in the hospital, fuzzy memories swirling back. Apparently, I had jumped away just in time before Liam's car smashed viciously into where I stood. Police arrived to find the vehicle abandoned, traces of blood haunting the fractured windshield. But Liam himself had vanished into the shadows, still dangerously obsessed with a girlfriend he refused to release from his clenched fists. Brooke clung to me weeping when I came to, so grateful I survived the attack. Her warm arms felt comforting as hell after everything. But I knew the terror wasn't over yet. Liam had slipped back into hiding, rage and rejection fueling his madness even more now. Though still aching, my bones had mended, unlike Liam's broken mind. Somewhere out there, he was plotting his next unhinged move, consumed with possessing Brooke at any cost. She was still trapped in his twisted sights, and I refused to leave her side until he was finally brought to justice. This Tinder romance had opened unexpected portals of darkness from Brooke's past. Our blissful bubble was definitively burst, yet we persevered. United against the obsessive forces that tried to tear us apart, both vowing to never become victims of Liam's psychological brutality again. Scoring a match with a total bombshell like Natalia felt too good to be true. Her photos showed off gorgeous green eyes, flowing black hair, and curves for days. She was a successful entrepreneur and world traveler to boot. I couldn't believe the intriguing conversations we started having on Tinder right off the bat. Natalia suggested meeting up at a swanky rooftop lounge downtown. When she strode confidently through the crowd in a tight red dress, every guy's head turned. But Natalia only had eyes for me once we locked in on each other. Her bright smile lit up the dim bar as we dove into effortless chat. Over wine, she confessed that she found me way more interesting than the arrogant finance bros she usually met. Score, the last in electric chemistry flew fast between us. When Natalia leaned in close to tease in my ear, tingles ran all over. We started seeing each other a few times a week after that. Hiking scenic trails, checking out new fusion restaurants, dancing at underground clubs till 3 a.m. Natalia was spontaneous and so alive. An adventure waiting around every corner. She also had a nurturing side underneath her bold confidence. Whenever I complained about work stress, she'd give me a heavenly shoulder massage while speaking soothingly. And the passion once clothes came off. Whoa, llama. Natalia made me feel cared for in ways I'd never experienced. A month in, things felt so easy that I decided to surprise Natalia after a big business trip she took to Mexico City. I cooked up her favorite meal and gathered gorgeous red roses to celebrate her return. Then I headed to the address listed on her travel itinerary document. But when I got there, confusion washed over me quick. This wasn't the sleek high-rise Natalia had shown me pics of before. It was a modest suburban home in a drab neighborhood. Was I at the wrong place? A bad feeling started brewing in my gut. I nervously rang the doorbell, flowers wilting pathetically in my fist. A toddler's squeals echoed from inside before the door was answered by a frazzled dude holding a baby. Shocked recognition flashed across his exhausted face. Turns out this was Natalia's husband Greg and her 2 little kids. My mind reeled trying to process everything at once. Greg broke the awkward silence, saying Natalia wouldn't be home for a few more days. My face burned with the painful realization it wasn't just her travel dates that she lied about. Greg invited me inside to talk. I guess taking pity on my shell-shocked state. Turns out he and Natalia had been married 5 years, but it had been strained lately. However, he was completely in the dark about her steamy dating life in the city. Tinder, clubs, all of it. The truth poured out fast, his disbelief rapidly shifting to outrage. But mixed with Greg's anger was profound sadness about why Natalia felt the need to seek affection elsewhere. He blamed himself for being dull and absent, working overtime to pay bills. I awkwardly tried explaining all ways Natalia had made me feel special too, how she enthralled me with adventure. Our bizarre bonding was interrupted suddenly by the loud rumble of a motorcycle pulling up outside. Natalia swaggered through the front door minutes later, looking edgier than I'd ever seen her. Leather jacket, Chuck Taylors, a bulbous duffel bag slung over her strong shoulder. When she spotted Greg and I standing tensely, her face morphed from shock to alarm before settling into cool indifference. Turns out Natalia was pretty deep running drugs across borders for a dangerous cartel. She kept different identities and residences to avoid suspicion while living the high life. Natalia had no idea I would discover the honest suburban family part of her double life, or the illegal side hustle either. My head spun with so many betrayals and secrets now out in the open, and my heart ached for Greg and those young kids. I felt nauseous realizing all the risks from shacking up with a ruthless smuggler and importing mass quantities of illicit substances. Natalia stood stoically as her web of lies rapidly unraveled before us. When Greg demanded answers, Natalia maintained an eerie calm. She spoke vaguely about needing change and purpose lately, feeling too confined in domesticity perhaps. But her reasons sounded hollow and immature to my ears after learning what she was mixed up in. Natalia turned suddenly to leave, but Greg grabbed her arm desperately. Didn't she want to repair things for their little family's sake? In one swift motion, Natalia hurled him to the floor and swept out the door without a glance back. Peeling away into the night, her motorcycle roared as loud as the painful silence now piercing that humble living room. Greg sat slumped on the floor, silently sobbing with his head in his hands. I stood numbly too, uncertainty and sorrow hanging thick in the room Natalia had just ripped apart. I apologized meekly to Greg for everything before heading out myself. Driving home dazed, I replayed memories of Natalia dancing above those club crowds, so radiant and intoxicatingly alluring. But her glow had blinded me to the obscure truths. That adventurous dream girl was little more than a fantasy to escape her real-life shortcomings. Behind the bold mask was just a broken woman running desperately from herself. I couldn't help pitying everyone Natalia had deceived and discarded so carelessly. Greg, me, even herself most tragically. What would her dangerous secrets and recklessness destroy next? Would anyone reach past that brazen illusion to fix the flaws cracking Natalia's very soul before she shattered everything else in her wake too? In the harsh glare of reality, I knew all the magic we once shared had evaporated forever. My greatest Tinder match was probably also my worst, unveiling the ugly risks hiding behind false charms. And while her lies hurt me plenty, greater grief now overwhelmed me for that sweet little family torn violently apart. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.